Hello, welcome to It Speaks Volumes. I am Domenico Di Siena and I'm really happy and glad to start this new adventure. We will be discovering a lot of interesting people, projects, and having a lot of uh, conversations related with our professional interest and activities. So it speaks volumes in search of words for alternative economies in the making. This podcast, hosted by Volume Media, has the ambition to highlight different communities that have not reached a mainstream audience by stressing the importance of alternatives they bring forth in our daily lives. During this podcast, we will be addressing different issues of social, economical, political interest, subjects we frequently come across within our work in volumes team. Basically, this is our first test. So I hope we can discover how to improve and exactly what would be the final format. Basically, we are starting something that we call, for now, volume media, with some communication and media projects, and that's this one is the first one. So for the upcoming months, we will be focusing on these subjects through thematic cycles. So for each thematic cycle, we will be organizing a series of online conversations in streaming like this one. And at the end of each cycle, we will be editing a podcast episode, condensing all the the conversation we will be having during the cycle in different formats, not only this one by streaming. So what is important is that the streamings, as the one you are watching now, will be held with the company of some very special guests. So they can be creators of creative initiatives, experts, collaborators, friends, or completely strangers, people we already know well or people we wish to know better. The aim of these online talks is to have meaningful and intimate conversations, get to the bottom of things that concern us as a society through the personal journey of our guest. And today we are with a special guest, a good friend of mine, Francesco Cingolani, to start with the cycle called "What is a Hub?" So I wouldn't say more about Francesco because we will be discovering about him during the conversation. So I just would say hello, Francesco. How are you?
Hello, Domenico. Ciao. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm really good, excited to start this session. You know, I do this a lot, so but I'm particularly excited to doing this for Volume Media, a project that we develop with a lot of enthusiasm and expectation. So, and actually, it would be the first in this kind of streaming that I do in English. So it's quite challenging as well. So yeah, but let's start. So it's this session is about you. We want to discover more about your story, your experience, and of course, with your words, understand better the word of hubs, or better say the creative and productive hubs. But before that, where are you now?
So now I'm in Cividano Marche in Italy, in a region called Le Marche, which is in the central Italy, quite well unknown, I guess, and which happens also to be the region where I originally come from. So yeah, that's
Yes,
where I.
quite clear. But what are you doing there?
Well, right now I'm in a co-working space. Yeah, so what I'm doing here is basically the quick way to say it is that we have a big project with volume here, the Villa Bonacozzi, which some of our listener may have heard of. So basically, we are working to convert incredible and amazing Baroque villa into a creative and productive hub. It's a kind of new cultural center for the region. And yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm based here now. It's also converging with a more personal, let's say, a personal story. Basically, me and my family, after 20 years of Paris, we wanted to kind of go back to the countryside, at least partially. And I guess that me being here, in a peripheral area, let's say, after living in Paris and Madrid, I think it's also an expression of a new, maybe professional interest of which is like the question of what's the role of these more remote areas in the way we think about the future, we do in the way we do innovation. I guess that there is a kind of research question there for me.
Okay, hearing you, so I can see that actually when you talk about rural area, you talk about it in having in mind the other kind of territory where you basically been developing projects. So maybe it would be interesting to know some steps in some way your story starts on the rural area.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I understand. So my story started here in this region, but I went, let's say, away for half of my life, let's say. For 20 years, I've been living mostly in Paris, but also I had a 2 years break in Madrid. So in very, let's say, big cities. And yeah, so that's where also the 20 years I spent in Paris were the ones where I developed my, let's say, career or careers. And then now I would say I'm kind of based in Europe, if I may say that. I don't feel like based, sorry, in Italy nor in Paris. I feel a little bit kind of in the middle, similarly to you, Domenico, in a way. And similarly, I would say to a big part of the community that actually is around volumes and our networks, no? Like this liquidity of being somewhere, but at the same time being somewhere else. I don't know if I'm going to.
Yeah. No. Let's between this liquidity and this indefinition. I know that you did a lot of stuff. So basically, let's start. What you did, for instance, in Paris. Let's describe some dots of your life in Paris, for instance.
Okay, do you want me to start from when I was working as an architect, or
I think it's an interesting story. So because starting from there and what you did later.
Okay. Yeah, so I was trained as an architect with a kind of original, let's say, trajectory, because I was before in an engineering, very technical school, and then ended up in an artistic school, by the way, with you, Domenico, in Paris. And then, yeah, the first part of my career was like as an architect in architecture office, working a lot with technology, um, but also with technology for social inclusion, for participation, yeah, inclusion, I would say. And then, I mean, yeah, there, at some point, I decided to, let's say, create something new that was kind of different from the architecture office. And strangely enough, for me, volumes comes from there, not from the need of creating a space that allows creativity to unfold in a city, but not being, this design office or yeah. So I don't know
So
if you
sorry,
want.
Francesco, you said volumes. You could say more about what is volumes
Yeah.
at that moment, at least.
Yeah, so Volume started 7 years ago, actually, as a hub, creative and productive hub. This is a category of places which is also called third places. And I would say that the volumes start from the co-working movement. At least a big inspiration came from the co-working movement in Paris. One of our reference was La Mutinerie, which was, I would say, one of the first and most influential, at least for me, independent co-working space in Paris. And basically, Volume started from there, but with a slightly different philosophy. So instead of having this tech startup entrepreneurs only approach, at Volumes we started with a much broader philosophy. So basically, Volumes, at least in its first uh, period, was this 500 square meters, where basically anything could happen, and literally and everything happened, at least in the first 2 or 3 years, from cooking classes, DJ sessions, innovation seminars, digital fabrication classes, cultural happening. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And from this mixity, I guess that what Volumes did created different innovation projects that now are kind of spinned off as companies or NGOs. That's the short story.
I
Um,
know, Francesco, I know that behind this there are a lot of funny and interesting stories. So
mhm.
I would like you to share some of them. For instance, I think is interesting story how actually you met Baptiste, for instance.
Mhm.
Basically, because it's interesting to it show your attitude face activating projects. So
Okay.
basically, so if you could maybe tell this story is interesting.
Yeah. So the point is that when I face when I want to do something, I always start with very, I would say, small and humble steps, which kind of sounds like great thing, but also it's very, in some, can be very, how can you say that? Can put you in very difficult situation. So at some point in Paris, I decided, okay, I'm done with architecture in the corporate meaning of the word architecture. I want to start basically a co-working space for architects. That was my naive first thing. So I just wanted to replicate. By the way, I can say it now. I just wanted to replicate the concept of mutinerie, this co-working space in Paris for entrepreneurs, which was great. Um, so when so when I wanted to replicate this for architect, I didn't know how to make it, and I didn't have money, etc. So basically, what I did is that I just partnered up with two friends, Pierre and Carlotta. Sorry, Concetta from Paris, and they just gave me literally a room in their office, and basically they let me did my own thing. And so I was, basically running this room of, with four desks, having this dream of putting together architects and creative thinkers. But I mean, it worked kind of not 100% because it was very small, etc. But one night I was called to pitch this project in a small conference, saying that what I wanted to do was a co-working space for architects. And there, in the public, Baptiste was there in the audience, and Baptiste was precisely trying to set up a 500 square meter co-working space with a focus on architecture, and that's basically where it gets started. So that's the story.
I see. I think it's interesting to hear also what was there before those big projects. So now I have this. We call it transition question. So, what do you think you are here? I mean, in this podcast.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm here because I'm responsible to for the very idea of saying that volume should become a media. I'm not sure that was the answer you were looking for, but that's one of the things. The second thing is maybe to talk and try to explain what these spaces or hubs we are creating are and why they matters. Am I right? Is this and maybe
I mean,
one technical question, Domenico? What about the
yes.
comments? I'm not sure. Should we answer the comments we are
No, I
receiving?
mean, I am showing up the comment that
Okay.
our
Okay.
public is sharing on our channel. So basically, I just shared one from Elena that actually was more or less introducing what you were saying, no?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. The comment was if we know that volume was going to be a hub, right?
yes.
Yeah, not really. I mean, at least what I can certainly say is that we didn't use the word hub until until 1 year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Volume started as a co-working space. This was the word we've been using, but always also felt very limitative for us because co-working was more, in our opinion, a business model, like a way to pay the bills. The business model side is very important when you rent a 500 square meters in Paris. More than actually, we didn't. Our aim was not to run a co-working space. Our aim was to create a community of creative people that could eventually, at some point, do great things together. That was the so no, we didn't use the word hub.
Yeah, so no, I'm thinking now. So 7 years later,
Mm-hmm.
what's your judgment on it? I mean, this approach you had.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's I would say that we created a sort of magic mess, like so on one side is a very complicated thing to replicate. We are approached by a lot of stakeholders that would like to replicate the dynamic we launched. And its replication is not really possible with this kind of initiative. So that's why I'm using the word messy in a kind of half funny way, because it's very organic and it's not something you can really scale or replicate. And magic messiness. The magic part is that I think it happens with all those self-sustained system that exists in biology, or I don't know, in social sciences also, or in urbanism. Basically, you create something that is able to generate also great things without being planned. So yeah, my judgment is that when we look today at volumes, I think that the strong part is that we didn't planned it as it is now. And I'm quite convinced that it would have been impossible to plan it that way. And this is maybe the only part of the recipe which is really, really strong, and which appeals other to want to have it. And basically, it's what we are doing when we intervene in other locations, like in the villa, or and it's or when we do consultancy, for instance. We are trying to create something that is able to be self-sustained once we leave.
You mentioned the specificities of each project like this, and also the importance of the community you create when you develop this kind of project.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be interesting also to share some thoughts on how this was, crucial during the pandemic crisis. So in Paris specifically. So I don't know
Yeah,
if you want to share some words about this interesting story as well.
yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great point. During the pandemic, I used to say that Volumes did its best performance stress test. I think that during the pandemic was the time when more than ever, I'm saying this quite proudly, and without expecting it. I mean, I didn't know how Volume could have reacted to this, but quite proudly, I need to say that I think that what Volume did best, or performed the best at, was its behavior during the pandemic. So basically, you can imagine 500 square meters of labs and offices shut down for a month, but still the community was super present and relevant. And yeah, and we were able to not only stay connected but also to achieve uh, emergency production for COVID health professional, like face shield, masks, and other things. And this was super magic, to use again this word, because it was the recipe was so clearly expressed at that moment. and the recipe was mainly three ingredients. The first ingredient was the community, a community of committed people, connected people, people that shared values of social equity, of commitment, of social commitment. This was the community, first ingredient. The second ingredient was the space, and this is super important for the architects or the city planners. The space was crucial to have a space with low definition, basically, which was not completely defined in its use. So, basically, it was super easy to convert our offices into a factory, just moving spaces, etc., tables and furniture, and letting in 3D printing machine. So, and the third ingredient was technology. The technology was, the digital fabrication machines, but also the digital communication tools that allowed the community to stay connected, no? And so these three ingredients were kind of, coming together in a super efficient way at that moment. Especially, I think it was very evident that because volumes was one of the only one of the basically the world was shut down, but volume was working, without difficulties, let's say. And it was super frustrating, for instance, in this period when the recipe of space, community, and technology was self-demonstrating in its value. It was frustrating how, for instance, the media, the traditional media, were trying to tell the story of the 3D printing machine that was saving the world. No, the point is not the 3D printing machine. The point is, the ecosystem that allows you to produce mask or face shields. The 3D printing machine is just one part of it. But that's maybe another
Yeah.
story.
No, that's the interesting story. So I think it's important to highlight, the power of community, not only for, this kind of already known business approach. We can hear now everywhere. Okay, if you run this kind of project, you need a community. I think there is this also human part that is there, and you discover exactly on this kind of crisis moment. So now I can tell you why you are here. Actually, as I said, we are here for this first cycle of It Speaks Volume, called what is a hub, and basically we want to address questions like why are they important, in contemporary cities? Are they just a trend? What do they provoke? What would a hub provoke in a rural environment? We were talking this at the beginning. So, and of course, now let's discuss. Let's go in the topic. So we want to think for a lot of people that will be watching this session. Also, I remember that would be part of a podcast. For in your experience, what you would share with some person, some group of people that is thinking on start a new hub, let's say a new creative and productive hub, which kind of issues, challenges you remember you had in your experience at the starting moment? So would you share some example?
Okay. Example of challenges, or are you looking also for solutions? Because I'm not sure I have
No,
solutions.
let's start. We know that the solution we built directly on the field, so is why the
Yeah,
experience is so important. So let's share first the issue you
yeah,
addressed.
yeah. So the first challenge, I would say, that stays alive also after years of operation is um, I would say I would use the word overload, overload of tasks, ideas, information. Um, yeah, basically, I'm raising this not just to define the problem, but also to say that when we start a new project, a new site, a new advent, a new consultancy, for instance, there is a huge part about um, being pedagogical with the people or the community that want to start a hub or a community-led space, which is explaining, this is what will happen, and that was the missing part to us because we were starting this, but without having, a training or a previous experience. And so being ready or prepared is super important. So regarding the overload, is just about accepting the overload I mean, this is what it is. Your project is about being and create abundance of ideas, things to do, projects, people. So that's one of the challenge, and I think that when it comes to be ready for it, it's just accepting that this is how this place works, and the value of this place is in the abundance. So don't do. I mean, it's not a problem. You may face this impulse of doing everything, or accepting or having all the project or the idea be developing. This is not the right approach. It's completely normal that one out of 10 ideas go forward, you know. So this approach of trying a lot of things and having nine of them failing and one working is a big learning. I remember that at first, in the volumes where we were facing a lot of logistical difficulties, or I don't know, with very technical things, or with the community, we were printing out this A4 piece of paper where we wrote down there is no error, but just feedback. No, so like yeah, this is one of the challenge at the beginning, like accepting that there will be error, and this will be the way how the project will be innovative. This is what happens by being
In this
by yeah.
No, sorry to interrupt, because in this sense, we can maybe go deeper on how we can describe creative and productive hub. Actually, I can read also the comment of Yelena, that is
Mhm.
also asking how we would translate in Italian, Spanish, and French this, because it's interesting. But before you answer about the translation, I'm curious if you could share your thoughts about what is the role of this kind of hubs in the city. And for me, it's connected with what you were sharing before. Actually, I feel that there is a different challenge starting a new project per se, with starting a new project that actually the context is not ready to understand. And I know that was the case when you started volume in Paris. When you were talking to even the public authorities, or other local stakeholders, they were not really understanding what you were proposing there. So basically, I want to know if you could describe in your word the role,
Yeah,
what it is.
I think you mentioned 2 points that seems different, but in fact are connected. So you mentioned 1 point, okay, is it true that people or stakeholders didn't get what you wanted to do before doing it? And the other point is, what's the role of these places, this hub in the city? Now, these two parts are connected. And I think that, yeah, I can confirm that even when you want to rent, when we wanted to rent a place to do that, to do volume, it was challenging because we were rejected by landlords because they basically didn't get why the hell, for instance, we wanted to mix architects with food designers or chefs. These were the kind of yeah, I mean, we felt a little bit like crazy, or at least they thought this. And by the way, yeah, so this was difficult to understand because I also understand them, because even now, with some people that I talk to about volumes, until the moment they come and visit it, it's kind of difficult to grasp why this is matter and why this is interesting, no? And I think to go to the other point of what is the role of these hubs in cities, I think, and this is part of our research right now about Fab City hubs and creative and productive hubs method, etc. One point is that the city, also because of the real estate pressure, is getting more and more, I would say, optimized or specialized. So you have every square meter is destinated to something, and this is more true in Paris, which is one of the most dense city in Europe, and maybe in the world. So you can observe daily the optimization of the space when you are in a bar, when you are at home, when you are in an office. You can see that every square meters count, and you actually can't have 1 square meters without a program defined for it. So this led the city to be super segmented. Okay, this is where I'm living, this is where I'm working, this is where I'm having coffee, this is where I'm sleeping, this is where I'm, I don't know, having food, producing food, cooking. And the point is that the world, or I mean, the trends of the world somehow goes in the opposite direction of, you need much more transdisciplinarity. You need to have different stakeholders speaking to each other. You need to have, I don't know, different professional working together. You need to have space for encounters, to create mixity, to basically to have people getting together, and this is what hubs are doing. They are creating space. I would say also, yeah, a space as a buffer zone in the city, a space where you can breathe, where you can try out new things. If you want to test things, you need to have space for it. And in a highly specialized city, in a super pressured real estate market, it's super difficult to have space for that. And this is where volumes and creative and productive hubs are super interesting for the city and for the communities.
So, Francesco, you could be here saying something that is quite strange. So basically, you even could say that you are basically putting away from the market places to give them to a specific community that want to do something together. It's quite strange, no? Because we know that we have to run a business to pay this place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true that we need to run a business, but I'm not sure. The point is that such projects are not just businesses, and that's why I'm saying there is an underlying business model that need to be super, super operational. But the point is not about running the business itself. So
Francesco,
yeah,
just one point. We have some noise from your micro.
okay.
Uh,
Now, what about now?
no, I mean, it seems to be the micro. I don't know if you could maybe switch off and then
Okay.
on
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
By lucky, we we could solve the problem. Let's try now.
Is
No,
it better
it's
now?
it seems to
Is
me.
it better?
Yes, go ahead. Yes,
It's okay, no?
yes.
So yeah, in a way, taking taking back space from the city and put and use it for somewhere something else, is it precisely what we are doing? I think that there is a kind of intention in which we want to yeah, rent, square meters or buy them, even if at the moment we are not buying them, but we take space and we we avoid this space to be used in a traditional sectoralized specialized way, and we use it to create this buffer, this space for improvising, for creating new things.
Yes, so related with this, so coming back to the Yelena question, no? How
Mhm.
we could call these hubs in other languages. So there
Mm.
is a word in French that is really, really cool. So
Yeah,
tiers-lieux.
yeah,
What,
tiers-lieu. Yeah.
so no, and my question is, this word is describing something that is really difficult to explain. In which sense these spaces are promoting the gathering of people doing stuff together. So I don't know if you could
Mhm.
share some thoughts about it.
Yeah, yeah. So tiers-lieu, but I always say that French people has advantage on this point because they have this expression tiers-lieu that now, which means basically third places. It is used in English in the literature, but much in French is now super used by politicians. I mean, it's maybe too much also. And yeah, third place comes from the idea of such places that are nor the first place being your home, nor the second place being your office. So third place are kind of both a little bit. So when you enter volumes, you have this feeling that you are a little bit at someone's place, with the kitchen, you have a bed upstairs, but also in a office. So you are not neither in one or the other, but both at the same time. And yeah, saying that volume is a third place is a kind of way to not really say what it is, because basically when you say, yeah, we are a third place, you're basically saying, yeah, we are a place that is super difficult to define, so just come here and visit it, no? So, but yet it's a super convenient way of expressing it, no? Yeah, like mix this capacity of mixing usage of space with different publics. So even when you comes in different times of the day or different days of the week, you have a different experience, no? If you come, I don't know, Friday night at 9, maybe it's much more a dinner in a house. And if you come, I don't know, 10 a.m. in the morning, it's super productive with people ticketing in the keyboard, no? So, and we just published it with the Centrino European project, a report that is kind of uh, defining what a creative and productive hub is by inserting this typology into a wider landscape of hubs that exist in history, in the European history. Yeah, this will be somehow
You
available.
mentioned,
Yeah,
sorry, Francesco, you mentioned Centrino, but here we need some
yeah,
footnotes. So what is
yeah.
Centrino?
Okay. Yeah, so Centrino is a European project in which we are involved together with a big consortium of partners. The Centrino is connected to a broader initiative that we are involved in with volume since a few years that is called Fab City, which connect different cities that are sharing the value of locally productive cities. But Centrino in itself is a project in which, from volume, what we are doing is on one side extracting from volume experience a methodology. So we are trying to convert into a method what we did for 5 or 6 years with a really do-it-yourself approach. So now we are kind of being more professionalized. And by extracting this method, we are working to support the creation of 9 new hubs in 9 different cities in Europe, which will be called Fab City Hubs. So this will be a network that will be created with the Centrino project. And the first hubs is in Paris, so Fab City Hub Paris, which by the way is opening in 3 days in Paris, next to not far from our historical venue of volumes. Yeah.
So I want to assure our public that we will be talking a lot about those projects. So Fab City Hubs, about Centrino. We have even a program called Fab City Hub Voices that will be in the future part of our media. So we will have more and more information and occasions to discover about the project, so the European project, but mainly what is interesting, having the opportunity to connect with people, organizations that are trying at realizing now these kind of spaces all around Europe. So that's huge. So we are approaching the end of the session, but before we go there, so we talked about the difficulty to define these spaces, but we use often these words creative and productive. So you even mentioned Fab City and Fab City Hubs. Why we need to put those words together?
Yeah, creative and productive comes from the idea of putting together, mixing, or in a hybrid model, the so-called creative hubs, which pre-exist to volumes, which is more the co-working cultural movement for creative industry. So these creative hubs are popping out in Europe, and there is also a network which we are part of, the European Creative Hub Network. But at volume, our very, let's say, personal touch was that our proposal was about bridging the creative part with the production of goods, like bridging the brain with the with the hands, no? So making while thinking, and so basically it comes off with our labs. We don't only have the co-working space, which is the the place where the knowledge worker is coming to be creative and to create knowledge. We also offer in the same space some labs, mainly the maker space, which is the labs where you can actually fabricate things, from furniture to a face shield, or I don't know, small architectural elements, or connected objects, etc. And then we have the food labs, which are those kitchens, social and professional kitchen, where citizen and professional of the food sector can come in, meet other person, use the available tools and the laboratories in the kitchen, etc. So for us, in our approach, which is also very a core element of the Fab City approach, is like the idea is that making things, the production of things, the production act itself, has a big social value. And so we believe with our labs, what we are trying to do is trying to bring back at the center of people's life the act of producing things, which traditional was put far away from us, from our cities. And by what our hypothesis is that by putting this back to the center of our cities, we can create social value, we can create empowerment, and also, especially maybe in volumes, it's true that we can create connection, because in our labs, that's where the conviviality comes in, no? So by producing and building something, or cooking a meal, or learning how to cook a meal, that's where the connection is made much easier than in other activities.
I'm curious, how do you position yourself from these issues and challenges personally?
What do you mean? Specifically to the labs and the production and creativity,
Yeah,
or?
so yes, in this dynamic, no, you mentioned to the needs to put together this, and you also emphasize this production part. So in this, what is your action, your position, how you understand yourself on this trend?
Well, this comes from a very personal. I don't know. I think this is an expression of how simply I work as a person. Not I work professionally, but how my person, how my body also works. So, for instance, for me, I don't know, cooking is a way to use my body, but that create relax. That's when I am a maker in my daily lives is when I cook, and by being a maker while cooking, I that's where I find the space to basically stop my brain, because for the rest of the day I use my brain, but when I am in front of the kitchen, I'm making stuff, and my brain is able to turn off. I guess that this reflects in some unconscious way into what volumes is becoming.
Maybe it's from there that comes your intuition with Food Lab at Volume.
Yeah, that's for sure. This is also much stronger than that, because at the time when we were thinking about the food lab in volumes, I was running a small business based of cooking classes with my wife, which was based on the idea that if you take a company, a big corporation in which people are having hard time collaborating because they don't talk to each other, it's not very useful to run, design thinking workshop. It's much more effective if you put them together in a kitchen and you ask them to, to cook something together. And for to run this business, we needed a kitchen, a professional kitchen, and that's also where the food lab initial idea came in, to have a kitchen in the city that you could rent or use for some hours in the week. So yeah, totally. That's very well connected.
I have to say that I personally enjoyed those experiences. So we are closing. So I'm interested on your suggestions. So
Mhm.
some projects, some maybe in Europe that we should go for next sessions. Who we
Uh,
should discover in so
Project of hubs.
yes.
Wow, I'm not prepared for that. I know a
Or
lot, but maybe my
not
favorite. I know, yeah, I know one. I know one, which is a kind of maybe new and also with a different approach, but it's super, yeah, interesting. It's Farm Cultural Park in Sicily. We just did a collaboration agreement with them, and it's I mean, I didn't know the project very well, even if I heard about them, but it's super powerful. They basically converted a semi-abandoned small city in Italy, in Sicily, into an independent cultural center that is now like super recognized in Europe and in the world. And I mean, their approach is amazing. So yeah, definitely Farm Cultural Park should yeah. You should learn more about it and maybe visit it in Sicily. And we are doing a project together. You will hear more about that.
Okay, so no, thanks a lot. So now we have the last opportunity to maybe learn more about you. So we would
Mhm.
love to know what you read, what you watch, what you listen. If you would
Yeah,
share,
so yeah, listening, can I say podcast maybe?
sure.
Okay, regarding podcast, I have one that is I'm very fun. I'm very much learning by listening to this podcast. Is the Tim Ferriss show. Tim Ferriss show is very well known podcast from investor Tim Ferriss, which ranges from entrepreneurship to spirituality to I don't know, drugs. I mean, very very broad. And the second, which I think is a little bit less famous, is the podcast called At a Distance, from two guys in New York, which speaks a lot about slowing down the time, and resilience, new ideas for the future. Yeah, Tim Ferriss, the 4 Day Work Week guy. That's how he started. Um, and then, that's for the listening part. Uh, and yeah, what was the other question? The reading. The
Reading
reading.
series, TV
Yeah, the
shows.
series, the series. What I don't have a series, right? Yeah, of course, I'm fan of Gomorra, the Italian series Gomorra, about the mafia and all this stuff. It's amazing. But yeah, right now I'm also looking at watching The Good Place. I don't know if you are familiar. It's a series that I discovered through the Tim Ferriss show because the author was host there. And then, that's. I mean, if you have
Okay.
any series to recommend, I would be happy.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Francesco. So that was amazing. Actually, 1 hour goes away for me really
Yeah, super
fast. So
fast.
I'm happy. So closing the session, I want to remember and also acknowledge that this podcast is possible, this streaming also, thanks to the work of Natasha and Elena that has been there on the production, the PV production, also now live. They are not visible, but they are behind working. So I'm really happy how that is going on. And the idea, I remember you, that is that we will have once per month this live streaming. So we will be communicating soon the new guest for the next session. I remember you dedicated to what is a hub. So I guess we are approaching the topic, giving more and more some insights on this. And again, I'm quite excited to start this series, this project with volume. We will see how we'll be evolving. So thanks a lot. I'm saying that also to remember you that even during the session, but also after the session, I mean, live and not live, you could be commenting and putting references, any comments, because this is also part of an edited podcast. So any insight, any comments would be useful to then having a better edition of the podcast. So that's all for today. Thanks a lot. See you, let's say, in a month. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Thanks, Francesco.